everyone. Welcome to the Morris County Chamber of Commerce's annual not-for-profit conference. I'm so glad you could all join us this morning. At the Chamber, we continue to fulfill our mission to educate, facilitate, convene, advocate, but now virtually. We've been virtual since mid-March, and we are proud that the not-for-profit conference is our first virtual conference, as Kay mentioned. I'm also tremendously grateful for all of the hard work that has gone on into preparing this conference by the not-for-profit board chair, Paul Muir of the Red Mill Inn, and his vice chairs, Jay Weissman of Legacy Financial Group, and Sally Glick of Sobel & Co. LLC, which happens to be our platinum sponsor this year. I'm also grateful for the tireless work of our incredible chamber team, in particular Ms. Kaylee Hilling, who you just heard from, who is behind the controls this morning, and who many of you have heard from this past month. And also Colette Moran, our Director of Marketing, who has put together a fabulous PDF document to commemorate the event today with agenda and description of our award winners and our speakers. She's also put together a website for this program, so please feel free to visit it either during the program or afterwards to learn more about our honorees and our speakers. I do encourage you to download the PDF document, and as I mentioned, there are a number of links within it as well. I would like to thank our sponsor, as I mentioned, Sobel & Co., PPAC Gladstone Bank also, who's dedicated to the success of nonprofits and who has assisted many during this crisis to secure government grants and loans. Also, Dennis Miller and Associates LLC, who besides being a consulting business, has just launched a suite of webinars for the nonprofit community. And of course, Sobel & Co., who is dedicated to you, the nonprofit community. I don't have to tell you, but Morris County is truly an extraordinary place. This is in large part because of our not-for-profit sector. The Chamber of Commerce has 725 members, and of those, 20% are from the not-for-profit community. The Chamber has a proud history of including and supporting the not-for-profit sector, and we are glad to put this conference on annually. The roundtable, led by Paul Muir, continues to meet monthly, and the not-for-profit mastermind continues to meet weekly. It has been indispensable during this challenging time, allowing those who serve nonprofits or work for nonprofits to come together to share and learn best practices. I would also like to thank you, our chamber community, for your adaptability during this time, and of course your resilience. With everything that is going on, we know that we are now more interdependent than ever. The Chamber is a membership organization, which means our mission is to serve you. Our mission is your success. Our mission is to ensure that you have the best knowledge to succeed in achieving your mission. We know that we need you, the not-for-profit community of which the Chamber is a part, now more than ever, to help us get us through this crisis, which unfortunately may take a little bit longer than we had hoped. That's why this year's topic is of vital importance: doing more with more. It's a wonderful way to describe what our speakers have practiced in their organizations and what they will be discussing with us today that has improved their delivery of service, has increased their revenue, has enabled them as an organization to have an even greater positive impact to the community and those they serve. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our sponsors for making this possible, and congratulations to our honorees. So now I'd like to turn it over to Sally Glick, our Chief Growth Strategist for Sobel & Co. Sally?
Thank you, Megan. And first of all, would be remiss not to thank not only Paul and Jay, but the entire Morris County Chamber team that has made this possible. Talking about an ambitious event, having a conference with so many moving parts, I'm impressed. We've been sponsoring for years. It was a little bit easier to stand up at the podium and address everyone personally. But at the same time, I'm delighted that the Chamber, being the committed group that it is, has put this together to serve the nonprofit community. And we're glad to be a part of it yet again. What's, I think, unique about Sobel, we are a CPA firm that is accounting, tax, and advisory services. But what's unique is that about 15 to 20% of our clientele is a nonprofit community. And many years ago, we had all seen the Simon Sinek YouTube on the why. And many of you have either read that book or seen him yourself. And we went around the room in our office and said, why do you do what you do? Let's look at what Simon Sinek talks about in terms of passion. And when we got to our nonprofit practice group and said, why do you do what you do? They said, in 2 seconds, it didn't take any time at all, we are so glad and happy to be able to help others. It makes us feel good to help others who do good. And where I've been with other firms who talk about the nonprofit work being a great opportunity to fill the summer months or to keep staff busy, at our firm, it had nothing to do with that. It had to do with a passion for the community we serve. And so that's why it's such a pleasure to be a part of Sobel and to know the strong backing they have for the Morris County Chamber and the commitment we've made to this nonprofit committee, as well as to the nonprofit community. So thank you, Megan, for the opportunity to say a few words and introduce Sobel to our audience, and to say thank you again for giving me the honor of being up in front, talking away, which is something I love to do year after year after year. It's been just a great collaboration, staying with the theme. We can't think of a better partner to have.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sally, and thank you for your continued support. Our first award presentation this morning is for Exemplary Private Sector Leader. And this will be awarded to Miss Susan Roos, who is a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers. She's the New Jersey lead for private company services.
And first of all, I want to thank, what a great thing to still do this despite not being able to do it in person. And you guys, along with so many others, have done a great job in transforming yourselves very quickly and showing agility and being able to work under these circumstances. So it's nice. I see, I think 16 of you. So it's nice to see 16 of you. And when I'm done, I'll scroll through the others. Thank you, Sally, for sponsoring. And this is just a really cool event. Whenever I get a chance to talk in front of people, I always want to say something, either profound or super intelligent or at least funny. But today I'm going to say pretty much what everybody else says under these circumstances, which is, this is really not for me. This award really should go to all of you. And I kind of sit back and think of what I do every day and what you guys do every day. I am so impressed with all of the people that I have met in the not-for-profit world through the years. And your work day in, day out is what gives us opportunities to come in and help and advise. And you've created so many opportunities for people like me that I wouldn't normally have done.
Anyway, thank you for joining us. And I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. Once we established the theme of this year's conference of doing more with more and looking to maximize the community impact through collaboration, there really was no better choice than our keynote speaker, Hans Decker. So Hans Decker has served as president of the Community Foundation of New Jersey since 2003. The foundation has $525 million in charitable assets. During Mr. Decker's tenure, the foundation's donor and legacy funds have made over $400 million in grants to charitable causes in our communities. The key element of the Community Foundation's mission is to play a leadership role on the critical issues facing New Jersey and its communities. It has recently focused on the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund, juvenile justice reform, and fresh food and food desserts. Mr. Decker is a past chair of the Council of New Jersey Grantmakers and a trustee of the Hyde and Watson, Milano, and the Old Foundations. So Hans will share his experience in collaboration and how best to achieve success. So join me in welcoming Hans Decker.
Thanks, everybody. Thrilled to be here. We've been a part of the Morris Chamber for a number of years and are very conscious of their commitment to the nonprofit community, which is not true of all chambers. And so they're a wonderful asset for our community. I thought I'd just spend 1 minute before I got into the meat of the matter, just talking a little bit about the Community Foundation for folks that don't know us. There are 500 or 600 community foundations around the country. We're the Community Foundation of New Jersey. We were started in 1979. And as Paul said, we have about $525 million in assets. Those are divided into roughly 4 categories. So we have assets where people have left us money over the years usually to benefit an institution or a cause in their community. Our most recent example is we're getting a large bequest from Philip Roth, the Newark-born author, to benefit the Newark Library. And so from those assets, we give money away. We have a dedicated pot of money for Morris County where our board and committees give that money away. And then we have money at our board level, and then we have money for different regions of the state. The second kind of function of the Community Foundation is we have a number of scholarships, mostly for kids in high school. And we award about $1.2 million a year in scholarships. Some people are getting more creative about scholarships as the years go by. And so we have some for kids in high school. We have some for summer certifications, and it's a very robust area of charitable giving. The third piece and the largest piece are what in the business are called donor advised funds, which are families and companies in lieu of creating their own foundation, create a fund at the Community Foundation, and from that fund they do their charitable giving. Of the money we gave away last year, we gave away probably $60 million last year. Just to give you the scale, $55 million come from donor advised funds. So it's a very robust part of the Community Foundation. Our donor advised funds will make somewhere near 6,000 grants this year. And COVID is a really good example of the power of donor advised funds, because our giving has doubled over last year as people have tried to help our communities respond to the pandemic. And then the fourth piece of the Community Foundation is we host charitable efforts. Locally, we host the Morristown Festival of Books. We host Impact Garden State, which is a wonderful collection of now almost 400 women who each give of their own resources and then make collective gifts to nonprofits in our community. And then, as Paul mentioned, we've been honored to partner with First Lady Tammy Murphy to host the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. And our state and some friends from outside the state have been wonderfully generous. We've raised almost $37 million now to help our communities respond to the challenges. We've given out about 9 or 10 million of that so far, mostly for food security issues and healthcare. And they're starting a next phase where we start to think about how do we help our communities and our nonprofits recover from the pandemic. So very quickly, that's the Community Foundation. As I think everybody knows, the topic today for the talk is collaboration. I'm gonna try to do some very advanced things with my with Zoom today, and that is called share your screen. I'm the first person to know you can do that, but I'm gonna try it anyway. So, and I promise this is the only page where I'm gonna read, but I wanted everybody to see this quote. So for those of you that have been in the nonprofit sector or in the foundation world, as you know, we love verbiage. And every couple of years, some new phrases come to the fore and they become very popular. Collaboration is one of those. It doesn't mean that they don't have import and meaning, but sometimes I think we in the sector sort of beat the meaning out of words. And so what I have here is a quote from a book that came out way back in 2000 that I thought I've always loved, which is, the book's title is A Plea for Plain Speaking. And he went through and basically kind of made fun of foundations for the language they use. And the quote you see here is an actual excerpt from a request for proposal from a national foundation. And I'll read it just because I've always thought it was very funny. Comprehensive community building naturally lends itself to a return on investment rationale that can be modeled, drawing from existing practice. A factor constraining the flow of resources to CCIs is that funders must often resort to targeting or categorical requirements in grant making to ensure accountability. And Tony goes out to point out that all of these buzzwords, return on investment, modeling, constraints, resources, targeting, accountability, are mostly from other fields: finance, economics, social sciences, management theory, and military strategy. And then he closes with, each word carries so much professional freight that the reader ends up exhausted from hauling the load. And so I always have loved that because it just emphasizes sort of the tortured use of language, which occasionally I think means we're talking past each other. Some of my favorite buzzwords, I'm going to stop sharing, I think now. Some of my favorite buzzwords over the years have been innovation. So it's hard to see a request for proposals or a grant application that doesn't mention innovation. It mentions it to a point where it's very challenging, I think, to understand what people are talking about. I'll hear nonprofits all the time say, I have a really great program that's worked for 20 years. It's tried and true. Is that innovative? And I occasionally have to say, I don't think so, because it's not brand new. But so that's one of my favorite buzzwords. Collective impact is a new one you'll hear a lot. It's related to collaboration, our talk, which is what our talk is about today. Alignment is another very popular one. In the corporate community, you'll hear a lot of shared value. And, you know, I have a vague sense, you know, of what folks mean when they use these words, but I'm not sure that my definition is always the user's definition, and I think vice versa. You know, I've been in the grant making world for a lot, and I learned over the years that if we say to a nonprofit, oh, that's an interesting idea, why don't you tell us more about it? What they hear is, I'm gonna get a grant. And what we hear is, we're vaguely interested, maybe we'll give you a grant. And it's just an example of how sometimes we talk past each other. Today, the word we're talking about is collaboration. I do think frequently we have different meanings about collaboration. And we're gonna run through a couple of quiz items or survey items to see if we can get a sense of who the audience is today and what folks really think collaboration means. So, Kay, if you would put up our first quiz survey.
Okay, it's launched. About how long do you want to keep this up for?
Can we get some answers?
Sure. All right. So everyone, a poll should have popped up on your screen. Just select which answer is the most appropriate for you. And we get it on our end. It's coming in really fast. 70% already.
Nice.
And I will share the results once we get most everyone in. I have 84% right now. And 89%, so maybe like 20 more seconds. I'm always kind of sad because as the host, I can never participate in these polls.
Yeah, the co-host can't either. It would be nice if co-hosts could.
Right? We don't count, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Hans, we're at 92%. What do you think?
We have a number of co-hosts and hosts, so I would.
That's not included with the, it actually doesn't include the hosts and co-hosts in that
You're so
poll.
smart.
Experience. All right, so what do you think? 92%, you think that's enough?
Uh-oh, is Hans frozen?
Hans, you there? Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Hold on one moment, folks. Let's see. Yeah, looks like a frozen face to me. All right. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Hans. There he is. Can you hear us? You're muted. Try again.
There we go. Sorry.
There we go. It's okay. Internet problems. It happens. So I'm going to share the results of the poll. Probably not the worst time for that to happen. So Hans, can you see the results on your screen?
Again, you want me to read them or?
Sure.
So we have about a fifth of the audience are executive directors, a fifth are from our fine development community. We have a good number of trustees and board chairs, and then a very popular category, other staff. All right,
Okay.
we have 2 questions coming up about sort of how people think about collaboration. So Kay, will you launch the next question?
Sure. Question number 2. Let's go. All right. Second question. This one's a little bit more of a thinker. Everyone take a sip of water while we wait. Drink your coffee. We're 66% in, and I'm seeing a heavy bias towards one answer already. %, almost there. Anyone else want to get in on this? Do so now. Gonna close it up in about 15 seconds. All right, Hans, we have 87% in.
Great.
You think that's good?
That's great.
All right. And you see the results?
I can. So
Wonderful.
number 1 with the bullet is shared projects with a nonprofit where the money is commingled. The one that got 0 answers, which I think is interesting, is merger with a nonprofit due to a weak financial situation of one of the nonprofits. I would actually tell you in the field, I think, and I'm going to give away a punchline of my talk, but is most folks think about collaboration when one of the partners is in a weak situation. I think it tends to, I think that's the first thing, at least on my side of the table, that people think about is who can we get them to collaborate to sort of lift them up. And I do also think a lot of the merger with a nonprofit to increase the impact of both only got 12% of the answers. And I would tell you that a lot of people think of that as an important part of collaboration, which we'll talk about in a second.
Okay.
So should I take this down here, Kay?
Yeah, I'm going to hit stop share results, and then you can click out of you can X out of the box.
Got it. So I think everybody knows that basically in general, if you're sitting around a table with other foundations, that you'll hear folks say there's not enough collaboration in our sector. It's a lament that I hear a lot. I have this quote there's a wonderful piece that I'll talk about later in the Stanford Innovation Journal. And the author was Art Taylor, and he said, historically, nonprofits have used collaboration to keep sinking organizations afloat. And I do think in the field, despite our poll results, that's what people often think about. What I think that funders are saying when they use the word collaboration is that we need more scale, that we need more impact from our nonprofit sector. That's why you see it on grant application after grant application. New Jersey especially, I think, we have arrayed our nonprofit community around our towns, right? And so most of us serve a relatively small geographic area in our state. And just as we have lots of towns and lots of municipalities, we have lots of nonprofits. Doug Schoenberg's on on the call, I see, from the Center for Nonprofits. If you take a look, every year they do a survey of the nonprofit sector in the state. The last one used 2018 data. We have 34,000 nonprofits in New Jersey. We have one nonprofit for every 264 New Jerseyans. We rank in the top 10 of states in number of nonprofits per capita. And so the other thing that I thought was interesting, I'm going to try to share my screen again here, is that the center also, is part of this survey that they do, asks nonprofits, do they foresee an increase in demand for their services? And let me just share my screen here. And this is the data of 2019 to 2018. 71% of nonprofits thought they would see an increase in their demand for services. 65 thought they would serve more people. 75% thought that in 2020 there would be more demand for their services. If we go down, this is a past survey that they did. Same numbers in 2016, same numbers in 2017, same numbers in 2015. And I think it's important to reflect on these results because, you know, in 2019, pre-COVID, we were in the midst of a 10-year economic growth cycle. Philanthropy had grown year over year, basically. And yet we, as a sector, are only seeing increasing demand. We're not seeing reducing demand. And sometimes, in the dark of the night, I say to myself, why can't we drive demand down? Why aren't we getting better as a sector? And I don't have an answer for that, but I think in the context of our collaboration conversation, we have to reflect about why when the economy is strong, there's more wealth, our nonprofit sector can see such an increase in demand. And I think one thing to reflect on is that at least in the philanthropic sector, folks are saying, have we designed the system that we need to drive down challenges in our community? Is this the best model? So when I hear folks talking about collaboration, what I really hear them talking about is can we make a better mousetrap? Can we deliver services in a way that really reduces demand? And that's a long conversation, but that's what I hear when people are talking about collaboration. So another quote from Art Taylor from this Stanford piece: nonprofits need cost-effective ways to conduct numerous rapid experiments concurrently if they're going to uncover new and better solutions. And I think a lot of us are pedaling so hard to keep the lights on in our organizations. Our budgets are tight, and it reduces our capacity to think about how we can, and I'm going to use the word innovative, even though I just made fun of it at the beginning. I think we have to talk about how we can innovate to create new ways to respond to solutions. In the Pandemic Relief Fund, one of the conversations we have is how do we get at the structural sort of, some people say gaps, now everyone says chasms that were exposed by COVID, right? Sort of these, we all knew we had these systemic flaws, but poor healthcare in urban communities, disproportionate health impacts in Black and brown communities. And COVID comes along and there they are, right? I mean, they're just right immediately. You see the disproportionate impact on African Americans. You see a nonprofit sector. Not many of us have the resources to put money away for a rainy day. And so nonprofits are struggling. We built revenue models on human events, galas, one-on-one fundraising. All of those are struggling. And when you sit in the COVID relief fund and you say, wow, we've raised $37 million, that's a lot of money. And then you look at the depth of needs that are emerging in the nonprofit community and you realize it's a drop in the bucket, that there is no way. I mean, one of the first emails I got during COVID, a wonderful social service organization that said, we estimate our financial losses to be $5 million. Can you help us? And I'm sitting there thinking, we'd be lucky to get you $50,000. That isn't going to solve, that's not even, that's 1% of your challenge. Like, the scale of this is beyond philanthropy. And I think COVID, among other things, forces us to think about other ways to capitalize our institutions and, to get to the point of today's speech, to collaborate with each other more. And I think everyone was right to test it, right? Where we're independent organizations and we test working on things together. But we also need to start thinking about, are there ways to deliver more scale, more economies of scale in our institutions, et cetera. One of the ways to do that, and this is one of the things we're doing in the Pandemic Relief Fund, is to think about, and I know a lot of folks do this naturally, but to think about how do we leverage public resources. That's where the money is, right? I mean, there's literally billions of dollars flowing to New Jersey from the federal government. Some cynics might say it's all money we just printed out of thin air, but it is real billions of dollars. And how can we, as the nonprofit community, collaborate with that money? Because if we can use a little bit of philanthropic and nonprofit money to make the public spending wiser, then we all benefit. There's a good example from a program from Baltimore that we're looking at, which is there's money, federal money, that flowed into the community for contact tracing and testing. But because it's federal money, it has real limitations on what it can be spent on. And so the philanthropic community put money in to allow the folks that are the employees for the contact tracing to get a community health worker certification, so that they now, one, their own economic opportunities improved, but two, we now have a permanent resource around healthcare in the community that we can leverage in other ways. And so I heard Darren Walker from the Ford Foundation speak about 9 months ago, and he was encouraging the philanthropic sector to devote more and more resources to advocacy, to changing public policy, to leveraging our dollars to improve the flow of public resources to the nonprofit community, to make the kind of policy changes we need to make. We've been advocating, and I don't know if we're going to have any luck in this current budget environment, for a charitable deduction on the state income tax for gifts to New Jersey nonprofits. To me, it's a really good example of how to invest some money, collaborate. In this case, we're collaborating with the Center for Nonprofits, other foundations in the state, so that we can leverage a little bit of money so that all of us benefit. Now, whether we can get that done in this budget environment is an open question. But to me, it's a good example of collaboration across the sector and really reaching for something that will help all of our institutions have more resources. And then the third sort of vector that I think you'll be hearing a lot about with collaboration is in this racial equity conversation. How are people going to think about collaboration? And what a lot of nonprofit or foundation institutions are talking about is, how do we use resources to build capacity in Black and brown communities? How do we use resources to build racial equity? And I think what folks are gonna start asking nonprofits are, what are you doing? Who are you partnering with? Who are you collaborating with to build capacities in the communities that we serve, rather than just deliver services? What are we doing to leave a legacy, if you will, of more capacity in those communities? You know, the fact is, if you look at the nonprofits that the Community Foundation supports, the vast majority of them are quote unquote white-led organizations. The majority of the board is white. The executive leadership is by and large white. And I think there's going to be a lot of focus in the foundation community about how do we diversify not only who we give money to, but in our case, how we invest our money, what our own board looks like, what our own team looks like. How do we, I've been using those Stephen Covey boxes, if folks remember from college. You know, there's important and urgent, urgent, not important, and urgent, et cetera. And I think the racial equity conversation is going to go from important, but maybe people didn't think it was the most urgent thing to work on, into important and urgent. It's going to be in the forefront of everybody's focus for, I hope, for the foreseeable future. And then I'm going to share my screen here as I close out a little bit. And I just wanted to give these lessons. Let's see here. So again, from this Art Taylor speech in the Stanford Social Innovation Review, which was published in May of 17, he had 9 lessons for collaboration. The first is build trust. You know, sometimes I joke when people talk about collaboration, what we really mean is you do it, is I'm getting you to do what I want you to do, right? I've got a vision and I'm trying to talk you into supporting my vision. And his point is real collaboration is where we sort of meet each other halfway. My objectives and your objectives get merged and massaged together so that we have a shared vision. Second, have a vision. And what Art means in this piece is all of us, nonprofits, should have a sort of 7 to 10 year vision of who we are and the role we are playing in the community and the niche we're trying to fill. And if we are good at articulating what that role is, I think it helps us look past our immediate needs. You know, to be honest with you, there's a scenario where there aren't going to be donor advised funds in 10 years. And so at the Community Foundation, we're asking ourselves, what value can we add in the community if we're not providing donor advised funds? Because I mentioned at the beginning, the majority of our resources are donor advised funds. That's the majority of the money that passes through us into the community. And as those get more competitive and there's some regulatory pressure, maybe those are going to look different than they look now. And how can we prepare for that future? So, and who, to our point, can we collaborate with? And we have had conversations over the years with other institutions about collaboration, and in some scenarios about how to merge. And those are always hard, especially if you can't crystallize sort of who you want to be in 10 years. His third point, seek to assure the success of your collaboration, seems self-explanatory. His fourth, and I think this is hard for all of us to do, but is to really take stock in what your strengths and weaknesses are, what the external and internal threats you have, and how can I collaborate in a way that addresses the weaknesses or magnifies my strengths. Art would argue for starting small, doing small things with each other, fail fast, build rigorous feedback loops, take a portfolio approach so that we are trying multiple different types of collaboration with multiple partners so that if a couple fail, as a portfolio we succeed. I think this speaks to the racial equity point, which is to really consider non-traditional partners. You know, I think some of the traditional rules in grant making are going to shift. You know, for years you'll see you have to have 3 years of audited financials. You have to have an operating budget over X. And I think folks are going to start to recognize that that cuts out big segments of our community from participating in the work. And then lastly, and probably most importantly to all of us, is how do you keep donors apprised of your collaborations? And I would even go farther this, how do you engage folks in that work? I know in the philanthropic sector, some of the easiest money to get, frankly, is when when institutions are talking about, we want to merge, we want to collaborate, we want to scale up. And I know by and large foundations are excited to invest in that. So I'll close here, okay? And I'll follow your direction on where we head next, if we're going to take questions or if I've burned through all my time. Thanks.
Definitely did not burn through all your time. I'm sorry, Kay, I was jumping in.
You're good, Wendy. Thank you. Since you're handling Q&A, it makes sense.
Yes, and honestly, this was terrific for me to hear, because you made me think of collaboration in ways that I haven't before. Excuse me. One in particular was merges. You know, I wouldn't necessarily have thought of that as a collaborative effort, but of course it's a collaborative effort, right? I look at the Mental Health Association, the Morris and Essex, and when they went through that big lift of joining forces, you know, and I think of, and what they did was, you know, they did that because of their mission and because of what was going on in the insurance world, and how can we still serve our clients the best we can, and the best way to do that was to merge the two. So thank you for that, because that really made me think of collaboration in a different way. Couple other things you said, I just wanted to, you know, how can we innovate? You know, I know you said, you kind of put the word down at the beginning, but I really think it's a good word, and
It is a good word.
you know, to help solve our issues. And that one, and the scale of this is beyond philanthropy, right? So you're absolutely right. It's beyond it now. We have to think of new ways to partner with, I love the one point about, think about non-traditional partners. You know, I thought that was excellent. So we do have some questions, and I'm going to keep an eye on the chat too as they come in. Denise Lanza from the Morris Parks, who
Hi, Denise.
I'm Parks near and dear to my heart. So she had the same thought that I did, where she thinks of a merger as more of a permanent, you know, solution, not necessarily a collaboration. So maybe you could just expand on your thoughts on that, because I actually touched on it as well.
Yeah, I mean, Denise is right. I mean, I think it's a spectrum. The point I think I was trying to get at is, when foundations or funders use collaboration, I do think they're thinking big. They're trying to say, as I said in the talk, how can we get to greater scale? How can we reach more people? How can we drive down the demand for services? You know, I think they're thinking sector-wise, and it's a little tired now, but this sense that we have too many nonprofits, this sounds mean, I don't mean it to, but it's almost too many mouths to feed. I'm really worried about I think it's very likely that, whether we like it or not, there's going to be a lot of restructuring in the nonprofit community coming out of COVID. I mean,
and there could be
financial losses are huge. Go ahead, sorry.
There could be some silver linings to that, right? I mean, I look at the economies of scale, like you were talking about. You know, we have to look at that. It's like a shared service concept, right? They can be very effective if they're run well, right? So that's the key, right? Everybody thinks, oh yeah, it's great, let's outsource, or oh, let's do this, but unless it's executed. And I like that other point that was made, fail fast. So we don't fail fast enough sometimes, right? Like, just fail, it's okay, learn from it, get back up, right? And move on to, how can we do it better, kind of thing. All right, so we have Jillian Pereira. It's basically a comment. She said she's been encouraged by the surge of collaboration as a result of the COVID crisis. And I think that just goes back to, with any crisis, there can be great change, and it can be positive, right? Agreed.
Yeah. I think sometimes I use this phrase, we have to bottle the urgency.
Yeah.
I don't know if folks saw this, but
bottle the baloney. No.
Like, foundations right after COVID struck said, oh, we're just going to fund operating support. We're going to reduce the time we take to review applications. We're going to do multi-year funding, which are things that the nonprofit community has been crying out for 20 years. And I thought it was interesting that all of a sudden COVID comes along, and we say to ourselves, oh, those practices that we thought were so important aren't that important anymore. So I think if we can sustain the urgency to look at all of our practices in a new way, that'll lead to a better sector.
Agreed, agreed. So we have a couple of questions from Eileen Heltzer from Planned Parenthood of Northern, Central, and Southern New Jersey. She's asking if changes in government policies and business investments can lift people out of poverty, home ownership, paid sick time, etc. What about changes for cultural institutions, for example, theater, dance, music, and museums?
Yeah. I'm not saying anything anybody doesn't know on this call. Of the sectors that people should be most worried about, it would be the arts. You know,
and that's been going on since before COVID, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and then this is just a very I mean, I thought, you know, when NJPAC, which is a very well endowed and supported institution, when they're laying off the number of people that they are, you know, as you guys know, a big chunk of the revenue is built on people coming to performances. And so I don't have, Eileen, really great answers about what the arts look like. I mean, I'd love if folks have ideas. You know, what we're trying to figure out in the pandemic relief is how can we take a little bit of money to leverage the sector? Because we don't have enough money to just fill the holes that have been created at every institution.
Yeah.
You know, I hear and the State Council of the Arts is going to have the same issue. And, you know, I think we're struggling, frankly, to come up with ideas that can lift the sector. And maybe to the point of this talk today, or this conference today, how can we encourage more collaboration and maybe even mergers so that folks can, the work they do in their community can survive, even if it's not in the current wrapper that it's in.
Yeah, and I look at things, you know, like the Morris Park System and MPAC, you know, collaborated. I don't think it's happened yet. I think it might be coming up, but on an outdoor concert where, you know, they can fit so many cars, you know, on a field. And, you know, to me, that's thinking out of the box, right? That's like, how can we keep people engaged and interested? And that's what we're going to have to do, right? Be creative and innovative. All righty, let's see. So Mark Valley, the philanthropic community can provide financial incentives for hesitant nonprofits to merge through two vehicles. First, through existing philanthropy and direct difficult conversations. Second, creating an incentive funding pool to facilitate mergers.
Amen, Mark.
Yes.
Morris County at one point, I've been around so long that there used to be a pot of money at Morris County for mergers. My experience, I agree completely with Mark about the resources. To me, the stumbling block on mergers, and maybe sometimes even collaboration, has surprised me over the years that it's less about the staff or the team. And I've experienced more issues at the board level, that the boards are more reluctant to sort of give up the brand and the history and this is a conversation I have with trustees all the time. You know, they should be stewards not only of the organization that they're on the board of, but of the community at large. And thinking about what role does our institution play in the community, and how can what's the best way to deliver the work.
Right.
I have found boards to be harder to navigate sometimes than the staff. You know, I always say about when we talk about mergers, or, you know, there's a risk factor in it, right? I have a mortgage, I have 2 kids in college, I have very little interest in losing my job. And so anything that seems to threaten my financial stability, I'm scared of. And I think we've seen this, Wendy, in getting shared services at the community level. You have to look for moments when folks are retiring, when there's natural moments of transition. And then we as a community have to say, now's a moment where we can sort of invest in a new way of doing things.
Right. Excellent point. And what we're talking about ties into a question that Tom Werder had from Morris Arts. He says, I think many nonprofits are hesitant to discuss our failures with our funders.
Yeah.
What can foundations do to encourage fast failure?
Yeah, I have an answer. So I think this gets to, as everybody knows, over the last 30 years, foundations have shifted to this. What are the outcomes? You know, they're project-based funders. Show me the number of widgets that I got for my grant. Show me the, you know, I want to count the number of kids that my money served. I don't want to pay for the overhead. I don't want to pay for the lights to be on. And that, to me, that's the conversation we have to shift. Because what we should be doing is be in partnership to try new things, and the nonprofit is a partner. And if the early indications that the first approach we use for this project aren't going to work, we should be able to have folks come back and say, we've got to change course. And there shouldn't be any quote unquote punishment for that. And I think on both sides of the ledger, I heard, every time I give a talk, I like to use my prom metaphor. And so I'm thrilled that it's come up. But I always joke that if you think about grant writing like going to prom, you do not FedEx your invitation to your prom date to them the night before prom. And if by chance they did go to prom with you, you don't wait a year to send a report about how prom went, right? You try to stay in conversation with people throughout the year. And I think we've created this reporting system. I do this, I wonder if you guys do it. I say, oh, there's a report to the Dodge Foundation. It's due May 15th. I'll put it on my calendar for May 7th to get working on it. And then I'll FedEx it to them the night before it's due. And what we have to do is encourage a year-long, in case it's a time-spanned conversation about what's working and not working, and to Tom's point, what we're failing at, so that we can redirect resources in a partnership. It's not this, the foundation sitting behind the veil judging everybody. It's a real partnership. That's hard to do. But I do think this shift that you saw from the foundation community after COVID is a step in that direction.
Right. And I do, you touched on something that made me think about the receivers of the grant applications, right? How much would they love not getting inundated the day before the grant is due, which is what tends to happen, right? So it's almost like if you do it early, you're going to get a little more attention, a little more special attention, where, you know, there's 500 that come through versus, 10 or early. So that's good.
I sometimes say, like, getting a grant is a little bit like getting into college, right? There are a lot of A- students.
The process, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to figure out how to stand out.
Yeah, good, very good point. So Alan Zakin has a question. Corporations in recent years have focused primarily on philanthropy that achieves their core mission and less on general support for the communities in which they operate. Do you see this paradigm changing post-COVID as community need is more urgent?
I don't know. I suspect not, right? The shift that Alan's exactly right. Over the last 30 years, we've seen this shift from community-based philanthropy to what I would call branded philanthropy, right? Where, and foundations do this and corporations do it, we're all about housing. We're all about Habitat for Humanity. We're about, kids before 6. We're about, everyone has a theme. And Paul's on the call and he can speak to his experience, but folks are sort of they're internally trying to justify the philanthropic. It's the same dynamic. They want to justify the money that's being invested in philanthropy. And so they want to count widgets too. They want to go back and say, look what we did with our money. And community-based philanthropy, for better or for worse, the way it evolved in the late 20th century was less focused on counting widgets and more saying, I'm old enough that you remember the phrase, I gave it the office. You contributed to the United Way. Yep. You went to a core of good nonprofits in the community, 20 or 30 folks, and you didn't ask a bunch of questions about what happened after that. Right. Now everybody's asking questions because they want to justify the investment that they've made. They want to, as I said, count widgets. So I don't know if that dynamic's going to change. What I think nonprofits can do is, and this is hard to do, and I say it and people shake their head when I say it, but is we can fight back about everybody trying to fund into specific silos of your organization. So, you know, when people say we have to be really good at articulating what at an organizational level we achieve, and then invite people to invest in that organizational impact. But once you start saying, oh, okay, you don't have to pay for overhead, I'll just let you do the childcare program, right? And the childcare is just a part of a more comprehensive program you have. It's important to be able to articulate at an organizational level what your impact is. And not all of us, I think we've all gotten into the habit of also just talking about what specific programs do. I've got the transitional housing program, I've got the childcare program. And then at the organizational level, this is where our overhead, I hate the word overhead, right? I mean, and when there are people smarter than me on this call, so they could correct me on this, but overhead came from the federal funding, where there was an allocation for federal funding for quote unquote overhead. And so people started putting into their budgets overhead so they could get an NIH grant. Now it is seeped into everything we do. So I wouldn't, if I were a nonprofit, unless I'm forced to, articulate what my overhead is, because all of the overhead is delivering the childcare. It's delivering the transitional housing. It's not overhead. And I think, you know, and you'll see it a lot at the university level where they have a carve out for overhead and everyone pushes back on it. And it's this silly little cycle.
Excellent. Well, this has been fabulous. I've really taken away some great nuggets, but we have to wrap this up. So do you have any final words of wisdom or little nuggets, a nugget you'd like to provide all of us?
Well, I guess I just repeat myself as I always do, which is I think we have to continue this conversation. You know, Mark's right. We've got to think about resources differently, and that should really, to model what we're talking about, could be a partnership between the foundation and the nonprofit community, where we can, you know, quote unquote, really talk about what the underlying issues are that prevent more collaboration and figure out how we devote more resources. The world's going to force us to do it, so we might as well get ready to do it.
With that, I'd like to now present the award for exemplary nonprofit leader for an organization under $1 million. The award winner is Reverend Dr. Sidney S. Williams. He is an impact investor and theologian with more than 30 years of experience in corporate and community development. Taking advantage of his early experience working on Wall Street, where he learned how to develop sustainable business models, Williams is known for making a continuous effort to identify where theological and marketplace frameworks should interact. Drawing on his unusual academic background, Williams brings a wide range of perspectives to his role as a pastor. After obtaining a bachelor's of business administration from Howard University in Washington, D.C., Williams earned an MBA from the Wharton School of Business and then a master's of divinity from the Wesley Theological Seminary. In 2018, he added a doctorate of ministry degree from Payne Theological Seminary. Combining theology and corporate business models in a distinctive way, Dr. Williams has pastored churches in the United States and in Cape Town, South Africa, and he has trained pastors and served as a missionary on 3 continents. In his current role as senior pastor at Bethel Church in Morristown, Williams has guided the development of the Spring Street Community Development Corporation to improve the quality of life for Morris County families. Programs operated through the Community Development Corporation include Table of Hope, which serves meals 5 days a week, offers a food pantry, and operates a mobile food delivery service, all at no cost. The SOAR program, which is designed to provide middle and high school students with a pathway to college, and the New Life Recovery and Reentry program that supports those suffering from from addictions. An author, consultant, and active member of the nonprofit community in Morris County, Dr. Williams has served on the boards of Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Northern New Jersey and Visiting Nurses Association of New Jersey. Currently, he serves on the board of the Morris Habitat for Humanity, Morris County Tourism Bureau, Morris County Housing Authority, and Sankofa Morris. I've had the privilege of getting to know Reverend Sidney over the past year. I'm delighted to acknowledge him with this award.
Well, thank you so much. What an honor and privilege it is to be recognized. I was a class of 2011 for Leadership Morris at the Chamber, and the Chamber of Commerce has been a great home for me, if you will. introduced me to Morris County. This is my 10th year being a part of this community, and so the timing couldn't even be better. 10 years to this day of coming to this community, and really thankful for the leadership of Megan at the county and her predecessor, Paul Bordeaux. And thank you for the honor, and hope to continue doing the work and making a great contribution to our community. Thank you.
So our next award, I'm going to roll right to that, is for exemplary not-for-profit leader in an organization with revenue over 1 million. I feel like I should ask for the envelope, but no envelope. That award goes to Carmen Dio. And for the past 18 years, Carmen has been an inspiring and dedicated leader at Community Hope, having committed his professional career to promoting the wellness and recovery for adults with mental health issues, substance use struggles, and homeless veterans. In 2018, after almost 2 decades at Community Hope, he was promoted from the COO and VP of Clinical Services to Executive Director following the retirement of the then CEO. Every organization knows how challenging it can be when an iconic leader steps down. But during this time of transition and ultimate restructuring that took place at Community Hope, Carmine was extremely effective, supporting the staff with grace and dignity through many difficult decisions. He fostered a spirit of collaboration, that word again, and cooperation, avoiding the potential for a tumultuous situation. As a result, he is respected by all for his managerial skills and leadership style, as well as for his sound clinical judgment and business acumen. Over the past year, he has successfully stabilized this well-known nonprofit organization and has focused on its growth throughout Morris County. Thank you, Carmine, and please take this opportunity to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I really would like to begin by thanking the Morris County Chamber for selecting me for this award, and to the senior leadership team at Community Hope for nominating me for this great honor. I do also want to say thanks to the Community Foundation. We were the recipient of some New Jersey pandemic relief funds to help keep our COVID plans moving and to keep people safe here. So that was great. Kathy DiFilippo and the Morris County Freeholders as well for their work in providing us equipment and other resources. Since starting my position as Executive Director at Community Hope, the Morris Chamber and its members have been really a wealth of knowledge and resources to ensure our continued success here at Community Hope. To be able to network with inspiring people like Megan Huncher, Sally Glick, Joe Surzan, Paul Boudreau, and Dennis Miller has really been invaluable in my time and for across our organization for a number of years. So, they say that great leaders stand on the shoulders of giants, but I really believe that it's not just great people that came before us, but the people that are around us now, just like all of you here on this call, that really make great leadership possible. I do want to thank Community Hope's Board President, Diana Lunt, our Board of Directors, and our amazing Board Leadership Committee, who are our ambassadors here at Community Hope to the business community in Morris County. They just do an amazing job keeping us connected. I also want to acknowledge Insigniam Leadership Consulting. They've helped us achieve breakthrough performance in the last few years to some of those successes that were mentioned. I want to thank my senior leadership team, Bob, Carolyn, Jen, Marissa, Peggy, and Stephanie, and the entire Community Hope team. Their caring approach and commitment to providing housing and services to hundreds of individuals each day, including people with mental illness, homeless veterans, and veteran families, really inspires me to lead. Last but never least, to my wife, Amy, my greatest confidant and consultant, to my family and friends who are always there to support. I recently read a quote. I want to close with it today. The essence of great leadership is influence, not authority. I'm sure a focus on this going forward can help all of us succeed in making Morris County the place to do business. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the award and for the time today. Appreciate it.
The award goes to Roots and Wings for their RISE program. Aged out foster youth are among the most vulnerable at-risk populations in the U.S. After age 18, these young people leave the foster care system with the unrealistic expectation that they can live on their own without support from family, a place to live, adequate education, any financial resources whatsoever or access to health care, and even without some of the most basic life skills. Many children in foster care experience physical, mental, and sexual abuse, resulting in significant trauma that is undiagnosed and untreated. Roots and Wings provides young adults who age out of foster care in New Jersey with safe housing, educational support, case management, counseling, and life skills in order to empower these motivated individuals towards self-sufficiency. Here's some statistics that demonstrate the grave circumstances facing aged out foster youth. 40% become homeless. Only 25% graduate high school by age 23. Less than 6% earn a college degree by age 25. 50% are unemployed, and they are 6 times more likely to have been convicted of a crime. But the good news is that as recently as 2019, with the Roots and Wings RISE program, 90% of the graduates stabilized their baseline mental health. 83% of the graduates rent apartments without government assistance. 100% are employed. 100% are employed. Graduates have become television producers, union carpenters, real estate agents, teachers, retail managers, healthcare workers, personal trainers, not-for-profit employees, and cosmetologists. The RISE program, which stands for Residential Independence, Self-Sufficiency, and Education, is incredibly innovative. It provides young adults who have aged out of the foster care system with a stable environment so they can pursue an education with full concentration. This is accomplished as RISE young adults live in the community, work part-time, and participate in their chosen educational programs. Their highly intensive and innovative program offers the support and resources needed to meet the challenges aged out foster youth face. They address the entire panoply of issues facing former foster youth with an emphasis on education, employment, building confidence, and acquiring important life skills. So it is that Roots and Wings helps change the lives of aged out foster youth from poverty and despair to self-sufficiency and hope. With that, I'd like to introduce Jessica Guberman of Roots and Wings to accept this award.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. My name is Jessica Guberman, and I am the new CEO for Roots and Wings. I started on May 1st. So I would like to just start by thanking Megan and Paul and all the sponsors and the Chamber for hosting the event and choosing us. Like Susan said in her speech, I cannot take credit for this. You know, I started on May 1st during a pandemic quarantine. So it has been interesting to say the least, but I'm really happy to be with the organization. And I'm especially happy to be back home. You know, I've spent the last 22 years or so working in the city, mostly nonprofit organizations in the Bronx and Midtown and upstate. So while I've lived in Morris County for the last 17 years. So I will say that it's good to be home, and I'm excited to work with all of you and to Hans's point, to start collaborating. So thank you so much for this honor. It came at a really great time because, working in this way has its ups and downs, as you all know, and this was a bright spot. So we really appreciate it, and thank you for your support.
Part of the mission of the Hanover Wind Symphony is to bring music to people and people to music. One of the ways they do this is by providing support for music education and aspiring instrumentalists seeking to pursue music as either a career or an avocation. Consistent with this mission, Hanover Wind Symphony launched a music scholarship in 2017 to provide funding for a New Jersey middle or high school music student who demonstrates musical ability and a passion for music. The scholarship provides funding so the recipient can attend a quality residential summer music program. The recipient will also have the opportunity to perform a solo in concert with the Hanover Wind Symphony. Scholarship funds were raised independently from those that are raised for Hanover Wind Symphony operations. In the spring of 2019, the Wind Symphony also awarded two scholarships. The senior division winner was Evelyn Tamaro, a 10th grader on oboe from Chatham High School. The junior division winner was Isabel Mailman, an 8th grader on saxophone from George Washington Middle School in Wayne. The scholarship program is innovative because it contributes directly to the musical growth of the winners, and the senior division winner performs with the Hanover Wind Symphony so that the impact of this scholarship can be witnessed by the community in a performance setting. So I personally had the privilege to work professionally with Hanover Wind Symphony. I've been to a ton of their concerts and I love them. I bring my family. So in that light, I'm especially delighted to present this award to Hanover Wind Symphony. And I believe Elaine Schlatter will accept on behalf of the organization.
Thank you, Jay, and the Chamber and the not-for-profit committee for this honor. 35 years ago, we created the Hanover Wind Symphony as a concert band where adult musicians could play high-quality music. Soon, we were presenting children's concerts to foster an interest in music for young people. Then came collaborations with local high schools in the form of joint concerts and master classes to show the students they can keep playing after high school and college, no matter what their profession. To further develop their skills, we created the Summer Music Scholarship Program 4 years ago for talented and devoted high school students. It was so successful that we opened up a second scholarship 2 years ago for junior high students to attend a local camp. Our goal now is to make this program sustainable for years to come. It's all part of our motto of bringing music to people and people to music. Thank you again on behalf of the Hanover Wind Symphony.
So our next and final Excellence Award for today is for an innovative program for a not-for-profit organization with revenue over $1 million. It goes to the Catholic Charities Department for Persons with Disabilities, Fight for the Right group. The Fight for the Right group is within the Department of People with Disabilities Client Community Service Group at Catholic Charities. This is an all-volunteer group led by individuals who happen to have intellectual or developmental disabilities, with oversight provided by dedicated volunteers, Anna Pilhauer and Jen Minervino. The name of this group is important because it sends a critical message about its mission. Created by an individual from DPD who is a member of the group, the name Fight for Right is meant to signify and encourage the idea of fighting for what is right by providing service to all of those in our local communities, nationally and worldwide, who are in need. To live up to its name and accomplish its goals, the group meets monthly to identify and perform worthwhile community service projects. Group members give input regarding project ideas and determine together which ones will ultimately be selected. Past projects have included creating centerpieces for a local women's club's annual bunny brunch, donating Mother's Day gifts to a pregnant women's shelter, planting flowers at a nursing home, giving back to our veterans, supporting law enforcement, running product drives for pet adoption and animal reserves, donating food to food banks, handcrafting, and many more. Trust me, the list goes on. These are just samples of the type of programs that are selected and the valuable role that volunteering plays in brightening the lives of others. Jen Minervino will accept the award and say a few words on behalf of the organization.
Experience for me to see the residents are giving back to people, you know, we're fighting for the right. You have the right as a pregnant woman in a shelter. You know, we're going to make you feel better for Mother's Day. We're going to give you a gift. And the recognition initiatives for law enforcement and veterans, it's just fulfilling for them to decide, you know, who they want to give back to. They love animals, so let's do a fundraiser outside of a Walmart, raise money for the animals. So it's just a really great group of people. I've met a lot of friends, and I'm just really honored to be a part of the DPD and this group. So on behalf of Scott Milligan, Chris Brancato, Joanna Miller, Pat, and DPD, I greatly am honored and accept this award on behalf of this amazing group.
Okay, that was fabulous. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sally to introduce our panel.
Thank you so much, Megan. So when we sat down about 6 months ago to put together this panel and talk about collaboration and a collaborative approach, we certainly didn't know that. I did not know that word collective impact that Hans introduced today, but we did pick the people who were uniquely qualified to talk about that very issue. And as maximize opportunities has become our year's theme, what our panel will talk about today is how each of them with their organizations has maximized that collaborative initiatives, whether that's across fundraising, programs, or services. I'm going to briefly read the bios. The bios are very long, multiple pages, because these are extraordinary individuals. I urge you to learn more about them. Their bios are up and you can see them in their entirety, but it's a disservice to do so little, but I want you to get a flavor for who is on this panel today. Paul Muir, you've already met, as our chair of this committee. He serves our community in special ways, especially in his position as the executive director of the Red Mill Museum, which he's held for 5 years. He is also the president of the Guild of Clinton. He is a board member of the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce, obviously the chair of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce Nonprofit Roundtable, and a member of the Morris Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Advisory Board. He's a board member of Preservation New Jersey, and a member of the North Hunterdon Rotary, the 200 Club of Hunterdon County, and a trustee of the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick of Hunterdon County. He has served 7 years as the mayor of Bethlehem Township and 10 years on the Township Committee. I have no idea if he has anything even close to what's called free time, but he is absolutely here today to share with us some ideas on how they particularly use collaboration at the Red Mill Museum. We have Dr. Anthony Acano. I'm going to call him Tony. He is a community college graduate himself and is the 3rd president of County College of Morris, which he took that role in September of 2016. He's committed to the mission of community colleges and their ability to provide superior and equitable educational opportunities and a transformational life experience. He is also a firm believer that the great community colleges we have are economic engines and vehicles of social mobility that bring strong partnerships and the whole community together through high quality educational programs that are customized for workforce development and rich cultural offerings in the arts. So again, you can see why Tony was selected and has a collaborative culture already instilled. We have 2 mayors today. The Honorable Helen R. Lefraw is also our panelist. For the past 10 years, Helen has been the Vice President of Development for Jersey Battered Women's Services. Before JBWS, she was the Executive Director for the March of Dimes, the North Jersey Division. She is currently in her second term as an elected member of the Newton Town Council in Sussex County, where she has served as mayor, deputy mayor, and councilwoman. She's also served as a member of the Planning and Land Use Board and is the former chair of the Historic Preservation Advisory Commission and is an avid supporter of the town's volunteer fire department and a member of the fire department auxiliary. Anyone that knows Helen knows that one of her greatest attributes is her willingness to share. So she's a strong supporter also at the Association of Fundraising Professionals, where she encourages her peers in that role and helps them with the things that she has done collaboratively that have been so successful. She's received numerous awards and commendations over the years for her work, and as have the other participants on this panel. We could certainly list all those, talk about their community involvement. The list goes on and on. Suffice it to say, you're here to listen to them and not to me. And so we're going to move right into the panel and discuss now in terms of not only the strengths and benefits of collaboration, but how do you successfully achieve the outcomes you set out to do? Hans made a very strong point that this should come from strength, not weakness. You don't get together with another organization because you're in a bad situation. You get together when you can help each other in a winning scenario. So I think, Helen, we'll start with you, Honorable Helen Lefraw. And why don't you tell us a bit about some of the collaborative efforts that are going on and have been going on at JBWS, particularly in the area of how you use that to get more from your services offerings.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Sally, for that introduction. And certainly thank you to the Chamber for hosting the conference each and every year. I love the fact, and it's also been a challenge, but love the fact that we were able to do it this year via Zoom. It's so great to see so many of my colleagues and actually partners in this work that we do, this human services work at JBWS. And it's interesting because today I wasn't really asked to talk about fundraising, right? Which is really, I think, what I talk about the most. We were asked today to talk about the collaborative programs that we have to deliver our services and our mission. And so, you know, it's interesting, this concept today of doing more with more. I think those of us in the nonprofit space have, at least for the last decade, been saying we need to do more with less, right? We're a nonprofit organization. We run on small margins. We're not long in our staffing. We're very short. But I think as Hans started to say, when we shift our thinking, even around overhead and things like that, this concept of doing more with more, when we think about embracing partnerships and collaborations, when we think about embracing the plethora of skills and resources that our volunteers bring, we really can get more done as a nonprofit. And so, as many of you know, at JVWS, we're a full-service domestic violence organization providing safety support and services and solutions to abuse for all victims of domestic violence. And so I say now, in going into our 45th year at JVWS, I dare to say that we are unable to really deliver our mission and our services and the full range of services that we provide without our partners and being a partner in that mission delivery. And so in JVWS, we look at our partners in the human services organization, in the human services space. We look at partners in government. We look at partners in our corporations. And so just to highlight a couple of our services, you know, we launched in 2016 the Morris Family Justice Center, which provided our first public location in the county courthouse in Morristown. And this is a Department of Justice best practice for delivery of services. When we think about the continuum of care for our clients and that fact that we can't help the issue of domestic violence in a silo. We really need to look at the entire family picture and the dynamic of that, and all of the partners that really help our clients to succeed and move to that self-sufficiency that we're seeking for them, that safety. We think about all the partners. And so at the Morris Family Justice Center and the MFJC and our legal advocacy program are co-located with JWS as the lead organization, but we work with the County of Morris. And I know Kathy DiFilippo is on with us today. Through Kathy's advocacy and the work that we've done with the county freeholders, we were able to launch and open the FJC. And so located with us there, the County of Morris, is Legal Services of Northwest New Jersey, the Prosecutor's Office, the Organization of Hispanic Affairs, the Morris County Bar Foundation, the Superior Court, the Sheriff's Office, Morris Cares. And so a JVWS client or anybody off the public is able to come in and seek services, resources, information about domestic violence, but then they're also able to meet with all of these partners individually and collectively to work out what are the best resources for them to move forward to safety and self-sufficiency. And so we're all co-located there. We all have MOUs. We understand what everybody's role is, but it's very fluid. And so we're also meeting as this continuum of care group, and as these organizations, we meet on a regular basis to find out what's working, what's not working, to celebrate those successes, but also to acknowledge where things are not working, right? So Hans talked about, you know, failing is okay, but do it quick and learn from it and move on. And so in the last couple of years, we've seen more clients than we set out to see, which also speaks to the issue of domestic violence in Morris County, right? But it's really been a great model for us. When we think about our dating abuse prevention program, we certainly could not deliver that program without our partners in education. So that's been at the college and the university level, certainly at the high school level, and we're now starting to really get into the middle schools with age-appropriate curriculum, talking about dating abuse prevention, healthy relationships, and how to really be a good upstander and bystander in this work that we do. And it's interesting because when COVID hit, we said, our whole program in DAP, Dating Abuse Prevention, is going out into the schools. How could we ever deliver this curriculum now that we're all virtual and working from home? But lo and behold, in looking at our curriculum and adapting it and reaching back out to our partners and saying, how can we continue to support you? You're still meeting with your students, you're still having classes, how can we help? And they said, overwhelmingly, oh my goodness, we're looking for additional curriculum content. We're talking to our partners in the arts. We're talking to all of our partners to say, how can you help us to continue to be effective educators and bringing that in? And so we adapted our curriculum and we've been able to deliver it virtually in our high schools. And I'll tell you, our outcomes have actually been better. We have students who have said, you know what, it's hard to come forth and talk about this very sensitive, dangerous situation that my friends are in or I may be in my group of peers, but delivering this virtually, I've been able to talk to counselors and talk to the educators about what's really going on without a fear of my friends and my classmates hearing about it. So that might be something coming out of COVID that we actually continue to deliver and that we've learned from. We also partner with other human services organizations in delivery of services, and I think about our trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy program. That's a lot. But TFCBT works with our children and our children's programs across all of our DV delivered programs in working with them to really work on their own narrative, how they deliver their story, how they reconcile with the fact that they love both their parents, but that they also hate both their parents, right? Because they're in this situation that they didn't ask to be in. And so how do they reconcile through art and through their narrative, et cetera? And so we work with Family Intervention Services and others for referrals, but also as a source for us to deliver our programming and our services to children. I certainly couldn't talk about the work we do without our corporate partners. When I think about PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers has been a longtime corporate supporter, and we've had a long-time corporate engagement partnership with them. But PwC has developed this amazing program called Access Your Potential, which is a financial literacy program. And through their foundation and working together with JBWS, we've trained PwC volunteers on the issue of financial violence and financial DV, and they've recreated some of their curriculum, and they're now delivering through JBWS staff as well as through PwC volunteers a financial literacy program that helps clients learn about budgeting and their credit score and cybersecurity and all of the financial literacy I think knowledge that people need as they move on to self-sufficiency. And so PwC and Norwest Cap all help us deliver that financial literacy programming to our clients. Certainly, JBWS is a member of the New Jersey Coalition to End Domestic Violence. And so we think about our partnership with them and all the other DV agencies. We collectively can come together to advocate and speak with our legislators in one voice about the issue of domestic violence. And I know Hans alluded to this as well. And so we continue to have our own relationship at JBWS with our county freeholders and our state legislators, and certainly our congressional representation as well. But independently and collectively with the coalition, we go and we provide testimony to the state budgeting process. We provide testimony in white paper and anecdotal information on the issue of domestic violence, and then other things that like housing and credit and those types of things. We speak with one voice in order to advocate with our legislators and our elected officials. So I could go on, but Sally, to your point, those are a couple of programs that we wanted to highlight first off, just to give a flavor of the collaborations that we have at JBWS that we learned probably 10, 15, 20 years ago that we couldn't do our work in a silo, and that for us to be as efficient as possible, we really needed to network with and collaborate with not only our partners in Morris County, but beyond our borders, statewide and federally as well.
Tony, I think we'll turn to you from the County College of Morris, where you have also done a wonderful job of creating those partnerships in order to have programs to offer to the community you serve. Why don't you give us a little bit of some background and tell us not only why these work, but how you've made these work.
Thanks, Sally. I appreciate that. And I want to thank Megan and her team and you and others for hosting this meeting today. I'm learning a lot, and I hope that there's something I can share that's useful to someone else. If you only hear one thing from my message today, that is, let me know how we can help you, how we can serve you. And that is core to our mission. We're a community college, or as I often say, we are the community's college. A lot of times people don't understand that community colleges themselves have a really unique mission. Typically when people think of college, they think about those freshmen and sophomores, and some are going to go to universities and some will go to community colleges. And that's important. It's the right way to think, but it's only a part of what we do. And it really doesn't help people clearly understand how community colleges are different than universities. So I always start with saying, you know, community colleges in the nation won't be the schools that find the cure to the COVID virus, but we will be the institutions that really, really support how communities function, how healthy they can be, and opportunity throughout all the communities that we serve. So think about how we can help you really is my mission. And I'm going to throw out some ideas on that. We made a big change in around 2016. We realized that we were doing a good job helping students achieve what they wanted to then go to universities, but not a good enough job supporting the community as a whole. And we had a lot of conversations about that before we kind of rebooted that part of the college. But what it comes down to is we have to be able to serve the whole community, nonprofits, for-profits, name the business, name the association, but the only way to do this is through partnerships, okay? It's absolutely impossible to have enough resources, enough people to achieve this. And we have, over the past few years, really built a tremendous list of partners, several hundred partners. Our two biggest partners in a lot of way are, first it's the Morris County Freeholder Board are tremendous because they are first of all, they're tremendous supporters of the college, but they're rich in social services. And today's students really require a lot of that. Certainly we serve that 18 to 20-year-old student, but we also serve the 40, 50, 60-year-old student with lots of life issues or simply needing to upskill, go back to work. So they're a huge partner. And that's only one example of why. The Chamber is a giant partner. People ask me sometimes, why would a college president have anything to do with the Chamber? Because the Chamber has several hundred different organizations that we can work with and support and experience a really good, strong mutual benefit. And a lot of partnerships have really come out of that. We work with the Sheriff's Department, Atlantic Health, the arts community, groups like Nourish NJ, and a whole host of others, including, and congratulations to all the award recipients. Our newest partnership really is with the Reverend Dr. Sidney Williams and the Spring Street Mission. In fact, we've got a great event coming up next Tuesday at 10 a.m. on CCM's campus. I understand the governor's wife will be there. And this is really just to do our part in supporting that very important mission that he leads in our community and distributing food to people, right? That's kind of baseline. People do need to eat before anything else can happen. So there's lots of ways that we try to support. What I tell people is we host around 300 events a year on our campus. About a third to half of those are for nonprofits, and that means there's usually no charge for them or very little charge. So if you're a nonprofit and you need a place to host an event, think of CCM. Great indoor space, great outdoor space, lots of really good technology. We do at no cost. We've got a really advanced video media center. We do promotional videos for different companies and townships as well. So there's lots and lots of ways that, that we can help. Some of those also are, we work a lot with the workforce community because part of what we need to do for our mission really is to be an economic engine, help attract new companies, but also train the next generation of workers as well. And that's where we have a lot of partnerships. But the other side is make sure that we're also an engine of social mobility. So one of our newest partnerships is Dover, the whole community. So we established almost 2 years ago partnerships with community organizations, the school district, businesses, to make sure that students starting in middle school have after-school mentoring and tutoring programs, and they begin to focus on what might they want to do during and after high school. Our goal is not necessarily to get them onto our campus, although we'd love to have them after they graduate, but to really help them think about what opportunities exist for them and make sure that they've got the skills and they're empowered to go wherever they want and do whatever they want as well. And that's one of our big initiatives also. If you really want to take a lot of pressure off of many organizations, and I hear Hans's concern very, very passionately about, are we going to really be able to do the things we need to do? A big part of it is by educating and empowering people, all right? So if they have the skills to go out and really achieve what they want, take care of themselves, and hopefully have enough success that they can start playing a big role in the community or some responsible role in the community, everybody benefits from that. So, that's how community colleges, I think, are different. That's our focus at County College is partnering. And we love to hear from different organizations of how can we work together? How can we support you? Whether you're a traditional business, the arts, a school district, maybe even a new nonprofit that doesn't have a lot of resources, talk with us. We have abundant resources, and they're there for you.
Coming up to your turn. And why don't you talk to us a bit about the things that you've been doing? I know that there's a lot going on. You have a lot of partners at the Red Mill Museum, and not only, again, how you've partnered, or how to get started with that, but also the huge advantages to everyone that's in that integrated network of collaborative partnerships. Thank you for helping us.
Sure. Thank you. So over the Red Mill Museum Village, we're a history museum located in Clinton. We're on 10 acres with 12 buildings. And, I'm excited, and I thank my fellow panelists for joining me on this. Because when I became the chairperson of the Not-for-Profit Roundtable, one of the things that I was really inspired by was finding ways to advocate and advance the missions of our nonprofits. And one of the ways that I've found to do that at the Red Mill was through collaboration on various levels. So each of us kind of split up a little bit of the areas where we collaborate. So Helen was able to talk about services and Tony about programs, and I'm going to focus a little bit more about events, a little more specific. But we do collaborate on so many different ways over at the Red Mill, and to the point that we actually added a tagline, or just more of a marketing, but it was something that kind of goes to the collaboration. So we talk about, we preserve the past, we educate the present, and we inspire the future. And we could do none of those things without collaboration with other organizations and other nonprofits. So, there's all of our events now have a partner. We used to do these alone, but at just about every event, we partner with another, typically a nonprofit. So I'm going to highlight two of those. So one of ours is Military Heritage Day. The museum for many years held a Revolutionary War weekend and a Civil War weekend, and they were always well received, and people looked forward to them. But like I say, times change, interests change, and even the reenactors themselves started to age. So the impact of those events were really limited, and it was sad to see them kind of shrink a little bit, but we still wanted to honor what they were. I was trying to figure out a way, how can we still do that without just eliminating these events? So we came up with Military Heritage Day about 3 years ago, and we combined them into just a single day. But what I think really makes that day special now are the collaborations. I thought, well, how can we have a greater impact and share our military history with our community and honor those who have served all the way back to the Revolution and then currently serve. So we partner with our local VFW chapter. We have an amazing group called the GemVac Veterans. They meet at what used to be the Gem Vacuum Company, largely Vietnam era gentlemen and women. And we partnered with them to help organize the event. And then we also started to partner with a local chapter of the Quilts of Valor Foundation. And that's really become the cornerstone of that day. We start the day off with a ceremony presenting a quilt of valor to a local veteran. And it's a wonderful way to start the day. It's filled with kind of pomp and circumstance and everything you would expect for a Military Heritage Day. And then we integrate it. So we kick it off with firing a gun salute from the Civil War reenactors, and then it turns into our fun day. But it's transformed what were events that were slowing down in their growth and interest to something that now continues to grow. And it's re-engaged and helped us better serve our community. So it allowed some highlight of veterans groups and needs, and allowed the community to see those because we gave them a stage and a platform at the Red Mill. That's also helped us because we really target families. And so, it was the point that we even had an 8-year-old. I loved this. There's an 8-year-old that chose to have his birthday party during Military Heritage Day. And I came in with all his friends and went from, we have 10 acres, so it's easy enough to set up these time eras all around the site and still be authentic about it. And he went around and had a great time with the reenactors. And even the reenactors have fun with it because as they wander around, we had a World War II reenactor walk past a Civil War reenactor and say, "Hey, there's my grandson." So again, it transformed events that were, again, needed some new life, but the life came from those collaborations with those veterans organizations. A bigger collaboration for us has been our annual Kids Day. So we've hosted this event for many years, and I always describe them with a smile a lot here because I describe it as a way of tricking kids into loving history. So we intermingle from ice cream churning, or ice cream making and butter churning, with bounce houses and pony rides. So they remember it as a fun place and ask their families to come back. And then we engage as they do come back. But again, the event was it was a great event. We usually would see about 400 people come out, and people really enjoyed it. But we started to partner with Norwestcap on this event and their early childhood developmental centers. And, it gave, those centers a platform in our site for families, again, because we target families, to come and see what these centers offer, and gave them a chance to market and share their programs. And it gave us an opportunity to make the event much bigger and have things that were more exciting and a bigger and broader event for families. The other thing is it gave us some, one of the things we talked about collaboration were some financial aspects. So typically our admission is $10 for adults, and then we have graded admissions for children. But because of the partnership with our West Cap, we became eligible for certain grant opportunities. So now we made it just a flat $10 admission for your family. However many people you have, you come on in, and that's been great and gave greater access. It also allowed for additional interactions. So we have live children's music as part of the event. And because of that collaboration, we went from about 400 to over 1,000 people coming out to that event. And it's a single day event. It's about 4 hours. We open at 12. It's there till about 4 o'clock. And that's a huge number for us to see. And again, it was, it was interesting looking at the poll that Hans did about collaboration, and because I saw the 12% looked at it as it was a lower number about creating a greater impact for both organizations. And that's the way I look at these: is what organizations in the community already have strengths? How can I play on that strength? How can I offer what I have as the Red Mill, and how can I take advantage of what they have for the community to both deliver our message even further and build that audience out, so that people get a better understanding of what we do and we can further our mission that way. So I chose to highlight 2 events, but again, just about every event we have has a partner now. We are nonprofits, but I always say in the end, we have to survive like a business. So, we track these things. So since we've had these partnerships, our attendance on our events have increased by 28%, and they increase year after year based on these partnerships. And it creates some really, again, we say the word innovation, but it creates some innovative ideas, because not only does it highlight what we do, but now I'm working with staff members and leaders of those other nonprofits, and we can share and create some synergies and learn from each other to better deliver those. So that's what's really exciting to me in delivering those events.
Paul, it's the perfect way to conclude that more with more conversation. And I'm very impressed you talking about it being a business. Helen mentioned it was a business. And I think that sometimes a piece that gets overlooked occasionally and the nonprofit side is, yes, of course, stewards of society, yes, bringing the arts and all and other kinds of resources, mental health, whatever it may be, to the communities, along with fantastic academic opportunities. But at the end of the day, it needs to be run like a business so that it can survive and thrive, and you can find and attract those great partners. And I'm appreciative again for the honest, fair, and valuable insights that everyone has shared this morning. Our panel has been picture perfect. Thank you all.
Great. And thank you, Sally, for moderating. And it was wonderful to hear from all of the panelists. So before we conclude, I just want to remind everyone to please visit our website. We've held over 100 events since March virtually, and we have many of them recorded on our video library. Of course, we look forward to a time when we can bring everyone back together face to face. We miss the energy of the Chamber's in-person events, but until then, please join us on Zoom, attend our roundtables every month and the mastermind every week, so we can connect, share, and learn from each other. So before we conclude, I do want to turn it over to Paul Boudreau to say a few words from PPAC Gladstone Bank. Paul?
One of PPAC's values is support for the community and involvement in the community. A lot of our employees go out in the community and work. We're going to have our 100-year anniversary in 2021 as a bank. We have an amazing trust division, amazing PPAC private group that manages about $8 billion today. And so we can do, I'm pretty convinced that our organization can do anything and everything that you need going forward in the future. And so if there's any opportunity for us to serve you, as I say, Joe and I are a team with Anna Rizzoli, who runs the Morristown branch, and we'd love to work with you. And so great to see you all, and we need to do this more. So thank you so much.
Leadership. And thank you all for joining us today. So have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and go out there and make some change. Thank you.